Waiting for Brad. Where were you at?
That might be a while.
He could, where do you have to go? He didn't. We have Doug, so we do have a quorum. And Justin is out somewhere. So he won't be here for both these meetings. So, all right. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Anyone see, we can change it around if we have to or not. So all those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
All right. Approval of the minutes from our February 2nd. No? That's wrong.
January.
January 19. Meeting
I'll move to approve them
as the 19th. Okay, is
for the 19th. Yes.
there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, public comment. If we have anyone that wants to come up for public comment. Because we don't have any other, yeah, this is the time. Yep, come on up. State your name, where you're from.
To the podium.
Yep, please.
I'm Stacy Cox. I'm here regarding the proposed ATV trail in Sterling Township. I kind of just have questions and comments all together here. Curious as to why I, the landowner, wasn't notified about the ATV trail. As I look back at minutes of the PTAG back in December on the 13th, it was listed on bullet number 11 to talk to adjacent landowners to inform them of this project. I haven't heard anything. I have questions why this trail is being made. The trail that goes nowhere, all it does is make a loop. There's no revenue that's to be made off of it. After walking the proposed trail route, I'm curious why you're cutting down large mature trees when going farther west is more open, because there's an existing bulldozer trail already more accessible there. I'm curious, how do I keep the ATVs off our own personal trails that will be visible to riders right from the proposed trail, because there's no in-between buffer between them? They said gates could be put up, but then I don't want to be liable for any accidents with that. I was curious about what the hours will be with this trail. I know there's a south one that's open June 1st to November 15th. I'm curious what the daily trail hours are, because that will affect all of our hunting in that area. Who do I contact if issues arise? I have an easement to my land and the proposal wants to use the road onto my land as the ATV trail. So I'm curious how that works. I need to get to my land with a motor vehicle and now you have turned the easement into an ATV trail. Is it legal for me to drive on the ATV trail and not get ticketed? I have truck access to get to my land, but what happens now when I meet a speedy side-by-side, or what do my children do when they're walking it? Is there a speed limit? It looks like the proposed trail uses to 80th Street as well. There have been many previous ATV issues tearing up that road on the intersection of 280th, 300th. Who's going to be maintaining, grading, picking up the garbage, doing the speed limits on the road, and how often? My first proposal would be to not put the trail in. But my second proposal is that the ATV trail be moved further west to follow the north-south bulldozer road and adjoin the existing drive near the horse camp located in the town of Sterling. I'm very concerned for my children's safety. The land has been in my family for almost 50 years and it has never been an issue. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Yes,
Mr. Chair, we do have Sharon Kelly on.
we do have her on. Okay.
She's
good.
on the speakerphone.
Oh, she's on the speakerphone. Okay. All right, any other public comment? Glad you guys are gonna come up and talk. This is your only chance.
I realize that.
Because you're not on the agenda anywhere.
Didn't know if I had 3 minutes or
You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, clock starts now. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Glenn Thorman. Mike Lozier is one of the other members in our group, Blue Rock Quarry. I want to apologize. We did not follow process that you folks have. When I was on the county board, that process wasn't there. That was a long time ago. So we felt that submitting our application to county administrator, complimentary copies to those on the committee was okay to do. And I don't think it was okay to do. I since have talked to some other folks who did not follow the process. There was some concern that my wife's niece is married to Jason, our zoning administrator, and Jason had some reservations with potential appearance of biasness on any of the transactions. So we purposely did not send it to zoning, and we gave the application to Vince, and as I said, complimentary copies to you. So understand now the correct way to do it, and we'll try in the future to follow that path with your group and not go around corners. It was unintentional. So I do apologize for that. The application still stands. We're waiting to hear back from the county, and I think the county is probably waiting to hear back on a DNR opinion that'll be submitted. And that's just fine. So take your time with it. Let us know what the next step is in the process, and we'll accommodate that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Your public comment. Looks like there is none. Okay, we will close public comment. Number 5, that comes up to whenever. If anybody has anything, just let us know. 6, I don't think we have another supervisor here. We do not. The trail update from Mr. Anderson.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you guys again. I'll try and keep this brief as usual. First and foremost, the comprehensive trail network plan has been finalized and it is up on our website. You guys should have copies with you there. This includes the updated site drawings from Alta that were part of their scope of work for the top projects. And also,
Andy, I got a problem.
Who's that? Doug, can you hear him?
I have a problem. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I goofed up the Zoom here.
You will have to leave this meeting to join and click leave and join. What'd you do?
I don't know. I just,
We can hear you, Mr. Rowdy.
We can hear you now.
okay, I'm sorry. My wife's trying to get this straightened out, so maybe.
Can you
the
hear
clerk
us?
can- Yes, I can.
You can. Okay, so we can hear both.
Yes,
So he might not have a copy of what we're looking at right now. Can you see it on the screen or whatever?
no, Wendy's fixing it here for me.
We can get a copy to him or whatever.
Your thing is-
Yeah, you go ahead, not, she's trying to fix it.
It's not working.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's available on our county homepage.
There it is right there.
okay.
See, so this,
Well, it's because of this one.
Should I continue?
Continue. If they argue a lot, we'll cut them.
Okay.
We have counsel here.
Yeah, we got counsel here.
Sounds good.
let go of
Update on
it.
some of the projects, the RFP for the ATV park in Sterling has been developed and it's gonna be released today.
What did you do?
Bids were gonna be due on February 25th for that, for preliminary design work.
Thing is still here.
And the design work will be due back on April 1st so that we can meet that April 15th grant cycle. But they have good numbers, and good figures for that grant going forward. Bob and I have had a conversation with the city of St. Croix Falls on the trailhead development there. It went really well. They're gonna be the project lead and incorporate our needs and desires into their designs for the updated parking lot and that new lift station and restroom building. So we're gonna have 2 unisex bathroom stalls and a little extra room in the building for those changing stations. They're gonna realign the trail. Instead of up by the visitor center, it's gonna be on the south end of the property near that new building. Bicycle maintenance and repair station equipment will be next to that building. We're gonna cost share that building with them, and striped trailer park will be added to that new parking lot. The city also has agreed to develop an agreement between us for this project, and will outline who's responsible for what parts of this construction project. Also, they'll be developing an operation and maintenance agreement for that new building, so that'll tell us who will do what. We're putting that in their court, and they're gonna get that information back to us for our review and signing. This project is actually gonna move forward sooner than we thought. Last time we talked to them, we thought it might be a project for next year, but sounds like everything's in place on their end, that this spring or in early summer, we can get bids out for this project, get rolling on it this year.
So Jim, on that project then is, I mean, we'll be applying for grants, but is the deadline April 15th for that too? I mean, so.
Right, that's a good point. That's what we're focusing on, all the projects within the plan. Those that are grant eligible, we're trying to begin the process either through RFPs or actually implementing the project prior to that grant deadline. And so afterwards, then we'll go on to those other projects.
This April 15th, this year you have to apply. by.
Yeah, that's it.
To see where we're at with.
Right,
Yeah.
the city's gonna use their engineer to do the final design, so that was nice of them, and then they'll cost all the project out, and so it's a nice cooperative agreement with them, so we need those numbers for the grant application, obviously, so they anticipate working, their consultant is CBS Squared, and so they anticipate getting those numbers prior to the April 15th deadline.
Even giving you a week or two, did they? Or not? Hopefully they can give you sooner than that. Okay. Does it look like it's budget wise, like what we put in? Or don't you?
I mean,
Don't
we
know
have to
yet.
stay within budget. They're cost sharing both the structure and most of the parking lot, so that's their project anyway. We are expanding their project a little to the west, so where that trail was or is now, it'll
Okay.
all be asked.
But our budgets.
Yeah, we made that
We're a
clear.
little high anyway,
Quite
weren't
clear
they?
that we have to stay within budget.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Lastly, we'll have our next PTAG meeting on February 28th.
February what?
28th,
28th is your last one?
the next one.
Next one.
Happy birthday. I'm
PTAG is going,
from the county.
what are they,
I
what are
thought I'd
their,
dial in. But can I call you back?
what's their next goal?
The next goal is that one of the projects in there is the development of trails for bicycles, equestrians, and cross-country skiing on county forest. So we need to talk to them about what kind of facilities they'd be looking for, where they like to, so just get some more details from them about those projects. and where
So they
go.
have some goals or something that's.
So there again,
Reportable.
are we reaching out? I mean, is that staff or PTAG? I don't know, but are we reaching out to those groups to say, where do you want to be on county forest? So that we're not looking at something and then nobody says, yeah, we don't want to.
We're not gonna go there.
We have no interest in being there, so that we know that when we're working on something, we have a group
Yep.
that wants to be there.
Yes, correct.
And, during Alta's public input process and collecting information from the broader community, we had that mapping tool where there were some desirable areas. So we'll use that as well to interface with the user. So that's really the big thing from PTAG. I mean, that's a big outcome is where and what facilities will those tree trails be?
What's needed or, that. So it's okay. But at least they have something to focus on.
What's that? That meeting is, yes, at 5 o'clock on Monday, the 28th. That's what I have for you.
Okay.
So just question moving forward, and I don't know what the time frame for the RFP on the study on the Gandy is. But when that comes, I mean, I would hope that we would be studying the whole corridor and then, when we put that RFP out, but then also giving all the villages along there a chance to say, if four-wheelers were to be allowed on it summertime, do you want them to come through town? Do you have a way you want to route them around town and give villages that, that input?
Their route too.
Their route, but then if they have a route around, it would be, their route. How do you want them to get into town if you don't want to go through town? Do you want us to require, dust inhibitor? Just those kinds of things. So the villages are involved in it. And then also make sure that we're not, if we're going to look at a separate trail, that we're not gonna, if there's a swamp, we're not going to go through it. We're not going to bring somebody on or off where it's a, 8-foot embankment. Those types of things.
We're just, yeah. All right. Any other questions on that? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Tim. Parks and Trail, there we.
Oh, I gotta put this in. Oh,
Yeah, there's a portal.
bring that up. Morning, my name is Mo Norby. I'm the Public Works Director. Just a quick update on trail projects that we're working on currently. Some of these slides you saw 2 weeks ago, just to give you an update on them. Right, the Sterling Loop Trail, we started on the 18th. We expected 3 weeks of pecan work. Currently, we may go a little bit longer than that. What we showed you last time is they started to rough it in on the western end of it. Next slide. And the next one. Keep on working as we're going through it. Subsequently, next slide, Bob. This is the trail last week going through there. As we got our widths out to 20 feet for trail building standards. Different sections. This is on the west border of the trail. Going down there, so you can see we're going through there. There is some dozer work left to do yet. Next slide. Again, this is some of the terrain that is going through on that west side. Trying to keep our widths going through there. Be able to transition this to part of the logging roads and some areas that didn't have logging roads. Next slide. This is what we're working on right now. This is what the trail looks like. This portion here is the existing Sterling Loop. This is where the campsite is. The yellow is what we have right now completed with the Fecon work. Currently, they're working on this last little section with that. And then we have approximately a week of dozer work to get some of the larger trees that are in the middle of the way down there. Also, next slide. This is the Sterling campsite. We did finish all the work at the Sterling campsite with the Fecon head. We still have some dozer work and some tree removal to do down there, but the Fecon work at the Sterling site is complete. Next slide. The Monterey's parking lot. Right now, we start on the 11th. We're 95% to 98% of all the grubbing is complete down there. All the stumps have been hauled off. Next slide. These are the foundations that were there. This was 2 weeks ago as we started it. Next slide. Subsequently now, this week we buried the foundations on those. Next slide, Bob. And now the site is cleared. All that's left is just a little bit of burn pile down there. So we're ready in the spring to come and subcut this and add our base materials, our fencing. We are getting a quote from XL Energy to run a pole in here for our lights on there. That'll be coming in the Sterling campsite. Polk will be running in a line to get us light into that area also. Next slide. And then this is the kind of the preliminary final design of the Woodley Trailhead Dam that Kristen did out of Bob Group, showing the entranceway. We did meet with the state out there. They had no issues with our access out there, with the exception of they only allow it 35 foot width driveway going in there. So that is on board right now. And I think that's it for the slides on there. Also, with that, the RFPs for the Atlas and the Clam Falls Dam repairs are out. We had several firms show up for the on-site meetings with Ben. That went very well. And those bids will be opened on February 9th at 1:15 in the East Conference Room. As a side note, we are still working with DNR down in Algren on the bridge down there to connect the north and south end down there. So that's in process. And I believe it's the third week in February. We're sending staff down to conference there for parks, get more ideas on amenities for parks and that network stuff, what's out there on the new stuff. That's what I have.
All right.
So how big
Go
is
ahead.
the parking lot at Wanderers now going to be? I mean, when it's done, approximately.
It's approximately 200 by 100.
Okay.
We'll have it pull in and pull out 2 entrances.
Yeah, it's there's a piece of room. Okay, and then just from public comment for parks and stuff, could we answer some of them questions? I mean, we won't have to do it now, but I mean, you know, from public comment, the gal had some questions about the Sterling Loop and that. We could maybe get her some answers and who to contact so that she would call you, of course, wouldn't you, Ben? Or who?
Contact Ben and Mark or myself.
Get her some answers then? Okay. All right, thank you. That'll help. Okay.
One more question. 2 weeks ago, there was talk of looping into Burnett County if they were on board. I mean, how long do we know about that?
Mark is meeting up with Ben and Mark are going up there February 9th to meet with Burnett County to find out on the feasibility of looping up into Burnett County and what that'll entail.
Good. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, do you want the update then on the Stour litigation under this?
Yes, yeah. So the update on the Stour litigation also. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the last week there was a motion hearing. This was the motion for an emergency temporary restraining order to halt snowmobiles on the Stour Trail. And what the emergency temporary restraining order was asking for is just for the judge to say no snowmobiles until I decide the injunction. So there's like the right of way answer and then for the rest of the litigation answer. We anticipate at an oral ruling tomorrow, Judge Black will rule on that emergency temporary restraining order. He hasn't ruled yet, so right now snowmobiles are still allowed on the trail as long as conditions remain appropriate. Next week on February 10th is the actual injunction motion hearing. This is an evidentiary hearing, so witnesses will be called, they'll be cross-examined. And that's where the judge can decide whether or not to allow snowmobiles to remain while conditions are appropriate pending the outcome of the litigation, or saying, no, we're going to halt snowmobiles until the litigation is resolved. All of this only happens if the judge doesn't rule on the merits of the entire litigation before then. And we had anticipated an answer at the end of December because we had received an email from the judicial assistant to the judge assigned to the case saying that the judge was almost ready with a decision on the merits of the case during the last part of December. But as of today, there is no decision. So we're just moving forward, assuming that there won't be a decision on the merits, and assuming that we'll have an oral ruling tomorrow on the temporary restraining order and a motion evidentiary hearing next week on the 10th for the injunction.
In a nutshell.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
Anyway, bottom line, right now, snowmobiles are allowed on the trail
That's, yep. Okay.
until the judge says something different.
It's almost as good as the cattail stuff, yeah. All right, thank you, Malia. That really helped. Mr. Doug. He is our, he was appointed to Northac.
Yes. Doug Johnson, I'm our county representative to Northac. That's the Northern Regional Trail Advisory Committee. And I don't believe you guys have heard much about Northac for a number of years. So I'm just going to give you a little background and kind of where we are. This will just take a few minutes. Nothing near as polished as what Mo presented on the big screen here, but you should each have a handout that, and I'm not going to go through everything there. That's for your information, and you can read and maybe get a better understanding of what Northac is and where we are. Anyway, it was created in 2009 by a cooperative agreement between 10 counties in Northwest Wisconsin: Douglas County, Bayfield County, Ashland County, Sawyer, Washburn, Burnett, Polk, Chippewa, Barron, and Rusk. 2009, this organization was formed. It was formed to bring together the parties representing those counties responsible for development, coordination, maintenance, and implementation of motorized recreational trails. And, you know, Ben's one of those folks here, Mark. At any rate, they bring together, Northac brings together, you know, these people, these, we'll say the trail experts from each of these counties, to provide an opportunity for those parties to meet and discuss relevant issues, activities, and programs associated with motorized recreational trails. Northac utilizes the services of the Northwest Regional Planning Commission to coordinate quarterly meetings and keep records for Northac. So if you're so inclined, you can actually go to the Northwest Regional Planning Commission's website, and through their document area, you can look at the records that have been kept for Northac since it actually began in 2009. Some of those records include the cooperative agreement that you're looking at the top of the packet that I gave you. That's it's a document that the signed document should be on file here at the county. I don't know exactly whose files those may be in, but it's an old document. Ben's probably got it somewhere in the dark recesses of a file cabinet. But at any rate, that is the original cooperative agreement available on NWRPC's website also. So also I've included, just for your information, the bylaws of Northac, of the organization. It's 4 pages, not really all that long, and it kind of spells out how Northac is accomplishing those things that by the cooperative agreement need to be accomplished. So it seemed for a few years that the organization Northac was kind of stalled and stumbling and looking for some direction, and COVID certainly didn't help that. But last year, those of us who participate in the Northac meetings suggested that we come up with a plan, a strategic plan to direct the activities of the organization in the coming years. And we formed an ad hoc committee and they did exactly that. So part of your handout also is a strategic mini plan. At our most recent meeting held just last week, the 27th of January, work groups were formed to address each of the areas identified in this mini plan. So we had 4 major areas, 4 major work groups formed. We have those work groups led by individuals that were identified on the ad hoc committee. So at our meeting last week, we had the most of the rest of the active members of Northac, and those folks joined in on the various work group committees as committee members. So I can let you go through all that and take that in. I've also included as part of the packet the meeting summary of our October 21st meeting. As I referred to earlier, Northac meets 4 times a year. And I guess the most important point that I would like to leave you with is that, especially considering the direction that the strategic plan, following the strategic plan, is going to take the organization. This organization has value. It's been around for now 12 years. And it does have value by bringing together people like, mainly I'll point to Ben and Mark, from Polk County. They actually get this opportunity then 4 times a year to meet with their counterparts from these surrounding counties. And it's a great forum to talk about problems that have been identified, within each county, see how each county addresses these things. Sometimes it's easier to make those kind of contacts in person than it is on the phone. And even by phone, it's nice to actually be able to put a face to the name that you're talking to on the phone. So it's very important that these kind of people get together. And, I can say this, that some of the things that Northac can help in addressing are items, as was just referred to, and Ben's going to be meeting with one of his counterparts up in Burnett County with that type of coordination. Well, this it's just important for the whole region. And as an organization, we actually had Northac a few years ago, the chairman of Northac, as part of some of the public input and hearing process on the master planning for the Stour, submitted a letter, for the record. And it's nice to be able to do that stuff because it's a larger organization, a regional organization, and speaking with, even the Department of Natural Resources, it's nice to have that type of horsepower, behind questions and discussions and that type of thing. So, with that, I'll just say, I look forward to updating you a little bit more after our next quarterly meeting, because then we will have, as a group, addressed more of the strategic plan, so I can give you a better idea of what direction Northac is taking then. But with that, are there any questions from the committee?
For me, I'm gonna ask, is Northac under us? So our committee? Are they, or,
We have representation on it.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have an MOU.
with them, or, no, we just have this agreement.
Right.
But I mean, are they, an outside agency under our committee?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
they're
they would
under
cover
the
that, yes.
trails thing.
Yeah.
They're under the trail stuff, I would think
Yeah,
they'd be
it would
under
fall
that.
under this committee.
So it didn't
I believe that,
jump into public safety or something.
right, I believe,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, that's why I'm standing before you.
I know, that's why I want to make sure, see,
I'm good
I
with
want to
that.
make sure. You should maybe make something that they update these agreements, like every 2 years or 3.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, and
Something like that, so people actually remember, 'cause now they're 12 years old, you might want to
right.
get their interest back up.
So, that's part of the reason why I'm standing here. I've actually been involved, not as a representative of the county, with Northac since 2010. That's when I attended my first meeting with Northac, the year after they were formed. So
Sure.
I've been with that organization these many years. And it's been just since this past summer that I was appointed by the
Chair for for Polk
Yeah.
County, to have somebody represent,
to
yes.
represent Polk County.
But I mean, we just need it kind of, so it's out there, so people know it.
Right. And as you look at the work groups that have been formed, with communications, outreach and communications is one of the groups. And I have thought for a number of years that as a regional trail organization, Northac has not had a lot of visibility. It has been, until recently, the only organization of its type in the state. Now, in the past year or so, there's actually been discussion among some of the counties in the northeastern portion of the state who are attempting to form a similar organization. So, while this is an idea that started here and has only been here for a long time, it's actually starting to catch on. And I think as more and more of our counties, may get a little bit frustrated, especially in their dealings with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, perhaps, having an organization that's bigger than the county or involving more counties, might relieve some of those frustrating things or assist in solving some of those issues.
Do the clubs join this too? Can they join it? Can a snowmobile club, ATV club join Northac?
Northac meetings are open to the public. They're open to, anybody who wants to attend. And periodically, we do have folks who would like to input things to Northac from the club levels. And much of my involvement over the years was being there as part of the Association of Wisconsin Snowmobile Clubs. They had asked me to be involved with some of that snowmobile related trail business with Northac. So and we have had in past years, we've had presenters, we've had people who've come to participate in the meetings from the County Foresters Association and other organizations like that. And because there are representatives from some of the other counties who are county board supervisors. We've gotten input from the Wisconsin Counties Association through some of those supervisors and that. So it's been interesting.
Is it only ATV and snowmobiles or is it all trail use?
Motorized, the cooperative agreement addresses motorized recreational trails.
All right.
And their main focus has been ATV stuff. Because back in 2009, we're still pretty much at the beginnings of trying to develop ATV trails, all around. And one of the main things that Northac was doing in the early years was trying to map the region ATV wise. And it became an almost overwhelming task as throughout our counties, townships were opening up town roads. And how do you print a map and, try and identify all of those kind of things on it? And then, where the town roads aren't open and with so many townships within each county, very daunting task that was.
Okay,
So that's all I have.
all right.
Thanks,
Any
Doug.
other- Thank you. That was good. There we go. Little zoning stuff to do.
Pull that up. So at the last meeting, we kind of went almost line by line through all of the amendments. We provided you with a draft copy. We have met internally in that sense then, made a couple minor changes. I know Supervisor Wilson had some changes that we incorporated. I can run down through those pretty quick. And that's that right there that you've got. I emailed it all last night. I literally just talked with Brian Winger yesterday morning, and I talked to Brad in that yesterday morning as well. The goal in that I've heard is there's some push to try to get this on the March County Board meeting. And if that's to be done, then we would need to take and hold the public hearing on March 2nd. And that's what we're able to make as far as our posting guidelines, but we cannot make the 2nd February meeting. So
Okay.
I think Brian was gonna take and be here, but so far he's not online. So I was just kind of go through. One of the minor amendments that we made since the last meeting is we added the ability to control lots and subdivision developments. Just because now we're looking at easements, so it might not necessarily be a subdivision. We might want to be just controlling an easement on an existing lot. So good catch that Brian came up with. Everything is the same as far as dwelling throughout both the shoreline and the subdivision stuff here. When it comes to easement, and that whether it's titled as an easement, lease, or otherwise, we added lease or otherwise in there. So basically like a covenant, for example, somebody can't take and grant a right through a covenant or through a lease, and that would not be termed an easement. So. When you're looking at the definition of a lot since then, this was crossed out before just to make sure that we're calling a dwelling throughout the whole ordinance. So there's no real substance change there. But we did change this to a lot also includes, and that's the same, but it's just not maybe. And the idea behind that is to take and try to count any parcel, legal description, whatever it might be, and call it a lot. So, which is again what the intent was, but it had wording like large, but what is a large parcel? I think everybody in this room would have a different idea on what that is. So. Good morning, Brian. So I guess I might as well just stop right now. We've got going on the amendments, going through some of the changes. And then maybe I'll turn it over to you, and that to provide just some concepts. And that if you want, Brian, and that is the one that's been helping me on these amendments, drafting it. And he is a property owner on Polk Lake and that, so he does own property in Polk County.
Don't say he's a lawyer.
What?
All right. These were done before, and that again, 1 and 3 are just being moved down to the survey required section. This is something that we worked on, in essence, last meeting. Basically, if there is some kind of interpretation that needs to be made, that the interpretation by the county staff shall be reasonable, and it shall follow the interpretation of that relevant provision. So to be in line with the purpose and intent of the ordinance. Trying to address any gray areas there.
Follow that?
Yeah, I'm on 32.7 right now with
Yep.
that. I'm gonna ask Malia, does that take care of some gray area?
Some gray area.
Some.
It also creates some.
Okay, I didn't want that part. I wanted just the short answer.
Provides an avenue to try to support staff's decision, you know, as
Yeah.
long as it's reasonable and it's in line with the purpose and intent. You know, that there is some, you know, state law out there that, you know, is kind of going the opposite way, like in the ability to rule on freedom of property rights. So, but that's more in our zoning side of things and that, whereas this is in chapter 236 for the subdivision stuff. So I think it'll help support the easement review. Survey required, D and E here on the next page, those came directly from the survey exemption clauses above. So those are the same text. And that was done before.
So Jason?
Yep.
On the survey, how big does the parcel have to be? I mean, I realize it's a quarter section, so 40 acres in the scheme of things, but there's not many true 40s out there. So if I've got
39.
what's a square 36? Can I still cut it in 2/18?
Correct. Halves and that. So
Yeah, so I can cut it in half. Okay.
And that we call it an aliquot split, and there's really no better view description out there than a quarter, you know,
Right.
because that will flux with the corners and that of that section. And that, so, but then if you do an east half, west half, north half, south half, you know, that it's really a solid view description, and it's pretty hard to mess that up. It's when they're 3 pages long that we get typos and stuff like that.
No, I just wanted to make sure because there isn't many true 40s in the scheme of things.
So that is the same, and that'd be provision E that we're talking about. And this is the sale or exchange of land between adjoining property owners. We do a meets and bounds review for those. That's for the shed encroachment or a driveway issue. That's where we see a lot of things. Easements here, we took and just provided a little bit of clarifying language along with meeting the requirements of chapter 32, which is what we're talking about here, and particularly this section, which would be 32-13. So that was just trying to add a citation in there. Number 2 here, we changed before, there was a period right by family member, and then we added for personal use primarily by the immediate family member. That's a typo. Primary should be primarily. So I'll get it.
Well,
Otherwise, everything else is the same. Remember, B through E here come right out of chapter 236. It's good to have that. We never had that language in there before. These were the changes that we had talked about when this first came about, and that this currently before had director in there, like land information director. So we just changed it to either Steve or I. Okay. This was a catch-all provision that we used all along about the density of a condo, and prohibiting an increased density just because of condo form of ownership. Number 5, and that is directed to the space in that, or the space around it, kind of a common area. And while being held in common ownership or benefiting the common owners, providing access to the water. And that would apply to any lake unless it's an unnamed water body or less than 20 acres in size. That's pretty well. Supervisor Olson had a question on this, and it was a good catch. There are no commercial or industrial subdivisions allowed within the shoreline areas of Polk County unless conditional use permit is granted. This was an and that, and I changed it to or the navigable water is unnamed for 20 acres or less. I think that fixes what we're talking about. Conservation design development, we removed for major subdivisions because we're not necessarily subdividing everything now. When we look at our campgrounds and mobile home park, manufactured home park conditions, we're using a conservation design development as a standard, not necessarily as a subdivision all the time. So it's not changing. You can still come through and do a major subdivision for a CDD design, but it doesn't happen. So nothing changed here. That was the same. And that, except for, 1,000 feet. That was in that draft that we had talked about before. That was a mile at the last meeting, and we dropped it to 1,000.
I think that's good, that 1,000. Seems like a lot.
1,000
That's a
feet
tough-
from a boat ramp.
Yeah, from a
Public boat
public
ramp.
boat ramp, we put though, didn't we? Yeah, not
Yep,
just public
landing or ramp.
access.
So that
Okay.
would be a actual developed boat landing or boat
Yeah,
ramp.
okay, the actual one.
Yep.
If you look how much land that actually affects us, how many public boat landings is there quite a few. I'll look at it. Well, that number could change,
If you go higher,
could go lower too. Depends on where my land is.
You can go quite a ways now. Oh, so in the concept of doing any kind of subdivisions, they've got what's called a flag lot. You think about a flag lot as pole and then the flag and you can put one like that to get a back lot area developed, or you can put 2 of them alongside of each other so that the poles match up so that you have a wider strip of land for your driveway, and then you got back lot. They're not usually very attractive because you got somebody that's got the road in their front door, and then they've got another house in their back. And that, but it is something that is allowed, and this was a good clarification. Just the prescribed lot area does not include the pole portion, that narrow access strip that is unbuildable, and that for a flag lot. And the prescribed lot area, and that would be the buildable area. So it makes sense in that you can't include that for your buildable area. Typically in that they're 66 feet wide. And that if it's one flag lot, if there's 2 flag lots where the poles are back to back, they're 33 feet each for a total of 66.
so on our, go ahead.
Is that a state requirement to have the 66?
66 is development practice in that, in case it was ever to take and be developed land beyond there, or if that flag lot could be 20 acres, we don't know. And that, so if they ever develop it further, it's to take and allow for a town road to be put in that for it.
But say if it does happen to dead end or something, would they have to have that 66-foot easement?
Currently in our ordinance, and that it's not something that we change, but that's what we require.
That's required. Okay. I mean, because there can be spots where it's a flag lot to a lake or something. You don't need that 66-foot easement, is what I'm saying.
Something we'd have to change. So anyway, like I said, we don't see too many of them because they're not really a nice
Very many
subdivision
anymore.
thing. It's just if they're really trying to slam in as many lots as they can, then that's when you might see.
How they get behind, yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
So do we define what a flag lot is somewhere in our definitions?
We do. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It is defined. Same concept is up above and that with the null space. And this is basically to prevent the common open space as a need for access to the public water unless it's unnamed 20 acres in size. And this is a concept that's only in this provision right now, or completely owned by one person or entity. And I think that Supervisor Wilson, you had brought that up. And that's something that you could carry throughout for this acres is if somebody has a pond, you know, and that happens to be 22 acres, you know, and maybe it's got.
That was my concern. If I own 400 acres and it's got a 30-acre pond on it, I can't, you know, it's all mine, but I can't do anything.
Can't do anything. Yeah.
You know, so that was my
There's a lot
concern there.
that are like that small ones,
You
yeah.
know,
The statutes have brought that up before and that for different, even though waters are held in public, you know, or in that, but they have said that if all the land is owned by one party, that they do certain rules for those. So anyway, it's up to you guys, whatever you want to do.
You're saying that should be added in a few other spots then, that one person entity.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be in that, so.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so if you wanted to keep like this last bottom row here,
Yeah,
we could put that wherever it says.
wherever it says that back here, okay. That might work then.
I put it
I
in the
would-
one spot because that was what Brad had brought up, you know, and that, but.
Probably put it in the other spots too.
Okay, Boeing stayed the same. The next Boeing did too. Family stayed the same. Everything there. Flag lot would be defined in chapter 32 of the subdivision stuff. Change this. This was a clarification on number 5. No change there. Immediate family member, that stayed the same as our last meeting. Just trying to define that for who those easement rights can go to. And to determine, you know, what a dwelling unit is. And that is both the same family. Marina, we did remove a part here that said, you know, for fee or for compensation and that providing a dock location. We removed that section just because Brian and I were talking about it as a physical element, and a marina means providing a dock or location. So we don't even have to get into, you know, how we're going to enforce the payment or what they're paying with, you know, and that. I mean, it's 2 apples and that, and the ability to dock your boat is that operating marina. So we got rid of that and kept
One call.
it the same. That's 6.
You need more ice?
Just removing effects. Okay, same as before, and that, but we took and did increase this to 174 days a year. We had originally proposed that at 60 at the last meeting, and you guys wanted to increase it to 174 to match the tourist rooming house duration. Something that there's been a lot of
Hey,
cases.
Jason, if we back up just a second, how much transient lodge do we have?
Probably only a handful in the county. And that, so, and they were all permitted prior to the comprehensive rewrite, so, yep, and the tourist rooming house amendments 19. Unnecessary hardship, that there's a lot of case law that says that a financial or self-imposed hardship is not unnecessary hardship when considering a variance, so we just added that in there. We actually have that on our application that we provide people when they apply for a variance.
Didn't the judge put that as, it has to be burdensome or whatever, and then unnecessary, don't we have to have that in there or something?
That's statutory.
Okay, all right,
And the minimum relief necessary.
yeah,
you know,
Okay. Yeah.
Vacant lot, we just defined that, no change from the last meeting. Watercraft did not change. That, this is a provision that Brian caught. Basically, this was just added as part of the comprehensive rewrite. But that provision goes against what we're trying to do. We're trying to have an easement review process, and that the ability to go over easements and leases and covenants. So we struck that portion. Okay, so provision I here has to deal with our farm animals on lake lots. And what was changed there, before we had that there was no animals at all on any class 1 lake, as proposed at the last meeting. Supervisor Olson and I were talking, and so we went with some language that Clam Falls has been working on because they've had some issues up there, and basically prohibiting 4-legged farm animals on any class 1 lot, and then allowing up to 6 2-legged or basically poultry animals in a fenced area. And if there are no roosters on a class 1, to allow that. The complaint that we've had before was, the guy next door, this is on Wapagas, it's actually a true thing, and that had chickens and they were running free range and that because that's kind of the new thing. Well, the guy next door had just had a bunch of mulching and landscaping done, and the chickens that were free range on his neighbor lot went over there and tore all of his mulch back out, digging for bugs. So that's kind of one of the things. And then he also had a bunch of roosters and they were waking the neighbors up, which is what actually stimulated the complaint. So
Instead of 2-legged, should we say poultry? What other 2-legged can they have? If it's ducks, geese, poultry?
Yeah, poultry is fine.
About 4-legged. What if you have to cut the leg off? You got a 3-legged cow, can you have them?
You're down to a 2-legged cow.
You're right.
And
Somebody's going to try to get around
I'm
it.
fine. Apparently I missed it at the last meeting, that none were allowed. I'm fine with that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine with none being allowed. I mean, so apparently I missed that on my computer. I must have fell asleep last meeting at
Trying to
home.
read it. Oh,
So I am,
well, this way it's the same as a lot of towns are dealing with it too in the cities, villages. They're trying to let a lot of people are having.
yeah, and we had talked about it at our last town meeting. That's why I brought it up to Jason. And so, I mean, if you want to keep it at none,
No, this doesn't seem too bad
I'm fine with that.
because we started with 12.
change it to poultry though.
I would change it to poultry. A little easier to, what's 2-legged? What is it? Not all of us are farmers.
We did discuss emus and
Yeah.
ostrich.
Yeah.
And then any barnyard feedlot, that's the same text as before. Just had to change any and that they can make it work. So these are our general provisions for the shoreline area. The text here in O came from the Conservation Design Development Guidelines. Still got the 1,000 feet. P provision here is limiting multifamily and family dwellings within 1,000 feet of a public pole landing or ramp. So you can't put up a skyscraper in that next to it. The Q here, that's the same catch-all provision that we had in the condominium stuff and that no matter what form of ownership, you have to comply with the density and shoreline stuff. In other words, the reason why we refer to minimum shoreline standards is because of our lake classification for 1, 2, and 3. The lot sizes are bigger for each one of them, and the minimum widths are also bigger for each one. R, and that is the kind of catch-all for various forms of owners, and that as far as being joint tenants, cooperatives, limited liabilities, that kind of stuff. S, and that is the number of people that can own a parcel together, and we had in there, unless there are other owners of immediate family members. This is something that Steve, I talked to him last night about. He's got some concerns from the real property side of things on how to take and catch real property members. Because a lot of times on a deed, they'll take and have also known as, and that is like a maiden name. So you got maiden names, you got various things. He'd like to take and, break that down a little bit more, saying like a trust is okay, but maybe a number of owners, and that would be okay, period, and not worry about the immediate family members or whether or not they're related from an administration standpoint, because our office would be calling people and like, oh, what's your relationship to Harry? Well, Harry's my uncle. Okay, so it's just maybe
Take out the
needs,
immediate family and stuff, take out some of that, I think. Like,
And leave it as-
should save us some headaches, because I don't know how we.
Yeah.
Just because it's a trust doesn't mean it's all one family.
so just take and put a period behind indirectly and then remove that.
I think so.
portion.
I think we're almost gonna have.
I think that
to.
would solve the
They
enforcement.
help us, that'd be hard.
How do you enforce it?
I mean, I don't want to speak too specifically on an issue that might be raised later, but
That would be a tough one.
that's a very,
Yeah, okay. I think we're better to say who can own it, we better kind of just take that
because a
out.
corporation is a person. I mean, there's.
But a trust could be 100 people,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
I mean, the
there's,
trust doesn't mean
we
it has to be
have to
family.
dive, I think we have to dive deeper into that, but that's. just kind of
Okay, Rob.
But we haven't had troubles with it, Davey, so I think we should take it out.
More than likely, this is probably a retro thing in that, we're not gonna be able to police it very good on the front end, but we could leave it as immediate family and use it to police on the back end as compliance. And when you look at 15,000 documents in a year going through their office, and that it's gonna take and be confusing to do it on the front end.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm thinking it should be out. I don't think we should say what corporation can buy this house or that house or this land. I mean, how do you tell a trust could be, like I said, 100 people, so you tell them only 5 of you that are family members can own it, the rest of the trust can't.
Well, the intent of this provision, and that is for the fractional ownership. And that, so
Yes.
that we can't all go
Behind lots
together.
and stuff,
And
yeah.
that, yeah, or even, let's say that we're just coming
Yeah.
out of the cities and let's say we're gonna stay at the Holiday Inn and that, but yeah, we wanna have our own spot on the lake. That we can't, you three and myself go in 1/4 ownership on a lake lot. Because now we just potentially increase the density or the usage of the lake fourfold, and it's only one buildable lot. And so if you don't take and prevent it at all, and that what happens from them doing it tenfold? We've got one over on Bone Lake like that. I think there's actually 15. They've got a 100-foot wide lot. They call it the East Bone Lake Access is what it's in the tax roll as. And there's 15 1-acre backlots that all have 1/15 ownership for that. There's not even a separate tax bill and that for that lot on the lake, it's a buildable lot. And that it's always assessed with those 15 backlots. And basically they've got 15 times the use out there. And we did have issues out there because they had 20 boats on 2 long docks. And that Bone Lake's notorious for having 300-foot docks. And they just had it lined with boats, both sides going all the way out. So that's what this provision's trying to limit. And
That's the backlot stuff we're trying to get rid of. I mean, I still say, we can't say who can own what.
But yeah, but haven't we solved the backlot problem? Didn't we solve this problem through the backlot issue and not the lake lot issue?
Not the owner.
By not
issue.
allowing
Yeah, that's, I'm trying to
Backlots.
say that's hard.
through the lake lot, so to speak?
I'll maybe let Brian speak on this afterwards and that kind of a conceptual thing, unless you want to do it right now.
Let's do it
Let's
now.
do it now.
Let's do it now. We're right in the middle of it.
I'll forget 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, it's Brian Wenger and that you got a property on Balsam here. And he's just been
This is
helping
Sharon.
us
Can
and
you
that
hear
with
me?
his
Yes, we
time.
can.
So,
Sharon is trying
Can
to.
hi,
Yes.
Hey, Sharon.
Yes, hey, Sharon.
when we talk about immediate family, does that get a little ambiguous? I mean, there's a lot of people that consider themselves family that aren't married. I mean, they have significant others. I mean, who decides what immediate family is?
Definition.
I know there's.
Yeah, that's why we
definition in
defined
here
it.
Where it says in-laws,
Sharon.
this law, whatever, but
Back to that definition.
that whole immediate family stuff, I think, it's just, you know, it's, when I'm reading about it, it just,
Is she on the
I
phone, Bob? or-
it brings
Yeah.
questions to mind. Who determines what immediate family is?
Sharon, can I read you? Would this be helpful if I read you the definition?
Well, I saw the definition in here, and I mean, it calls it out where it says, yeah, mother-in-law, father-in-law, this one, that one. So what if you're a person that isn't married and you've been together for 20 years? Is that immediate family?
Currently, how it's defined, it would not be. So,
So I just kind of question that because it's in most cases, like if you go to get health insurance, they would, and your employer would probably consider that immediate family. But anymore, they didn't used to do that, but they do that now. So I just question. I would like to give what immediate family means a little more thought.
If we went to just a number, we'd take care of that problem
Of owners.
of owners. Yeah,
maybe we should take and try to link it back to more of the backlot stuff. You know,
yeah.
or-
I think we fixed the problem we were looking at by fixing the backlot issue and saying, so I can't have this lake lot and then have the 15 backlots. If I got the 15 backlots, you still can't use the lake. It's just a backlot.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead, Doug.
under immediate family members, we had an issue in Bone Lake over the Straight River Dam. And our town chair lived on the river with her boyfriend. And it would impact their home, whether the river was impounded or whether it went back to a river. And I contacted the Attorney General office, and he said this is not a common law state, so she could stay as town chairman because it technically didn't affect her, it affected the boyfriend. So that's what Sharon was asking about, I thought, because our clerk, or not our clerk, our supervisor also lived on the river, but he had to recuse himself because he had property on the river, the impoundment. So that they were treated differently because of this common law thing Wisconsin doesn't have. And I'm not getting it all technically correct, but that's what the determination was.
Okay.
Let's hear from Brian.
Let's hear from Brian. How do you think we get around this?
Good morning, everybody. So I think maybe a simple example on the one question you were talking about, let's just assume you have 2 lots.
Brian, just because I was at home last week, if you could move ahead and get under the mic just a little more. Yeah, I understand this issue after last week.
Okay, hopefully this is good. So let's just say in simple terms, you have 2 lots. One's on a lake and one's behind the lake. So, the concept is to make sure that we have sort of not excessive use of the one lot. Simple concepts. Okay, so what you were talking about is, we've got these provisions that prevent the 15 in the back from using 100 foot lake lot. Okay, well, the alternative way for those owners to accomplish the exact same thing is the following: put the 2 lots together. Nothing wrong with doing that. And then at some point in the future, have the 15 owners own the 15 owners of the single lot, which is a riparian lot. And you've just created the same intensity that you created with the bifurcation of the existing 2 lots. So in my mind, for your consideration, the concept should be treated parallel, same. And so all the language does is provide that they are treated the same, depending on how you structure the ownership of those lots. I'll pause.
Here's my, how do we structure an ownership? How do we come up with, say that we can even do that? Because I could just say, Brad, boom, Tracy, boom, I want you two guys are all gonna buy a boat and stuff. So 3 of us buy a boat, 3 of us buy the lake lot. Now there's 3 owners. How can we say we can't do that because they're not immediate family? Oh, I don't think we can. How legally can you say you can't get together with somebody and buy a house? I don't understand how we can control that.
Okay, so
Is my thought right away. I mean, if I've got a group of guys, group of gals, group of anybody, investment group, and I want to buy a house, how can they come to Polk County and we say, no, you can't buy it?
back in your question, let me just
Okay.
Yeah.
check in on something.
Okay.
It's not all immediate.
Go back down that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking we can't play with the ownership part.
No.
No,
I think we got to get that out of there. I don't think we can
Okay,
say
so let's just conceptually,
43, 12. 42.
okay. Okay, I got, you know, I guess I would say you've raised a good point, and that's what these meetings are for, to,
Yeah.
you know, keep a little back and forth. So I think we need to think about that. So
I think we
duly
got to
noted.
take, I don't think we can tell somebody, you can't get a group of people together and buy a house. I just don't think we can do that.
Well, what we were trying to do is try to prevent the shared interest
Yes.
or the direct purpose of just having lake access.
Yes.
You know, there's no intention on East Bone Lake access to ever build a cabin there. There's nobody that will build a boathouse there because it's all shared ownership. You know, so that's kind of the goal. So maybe we can just reword that, you know, as like a fractional ownership. We do talk about fractional ownership in our subdivision stuff as far as like ownership of a road. If the town doesn't take over, that's under fractional ownership.
so could we go so far as to say that only in fractional ownership, only only 3 can have access to the across the riparian lot, or, I mean, I don't.
We have 0 right now. That you can't use it at all. So I don't think we should even put a number on that of ownership. I mean, I don't care if 100 people own it.
Right.
But they can't give an easement or anything.
It's prohibited right now through an easement, but that could still be just one form of ownership, you know, because you could grant the easement. So that was the side that's already covered in that. And now we're just looking at, okay, you own it, be entitled a fraction with somebody else, you know, to increase that. So I can look at that, you know, I mean.
I kind of look
and we
at
can
that. I don't
take
know
it-
if we can get legally into that to say 10 of us can't go buy a house.
Well, and again, there's different ways
To get around it
to have,
too.
to have several people a part of one LLC, one corporation.
Yeah, one trust. I mean, yeah, they can come in and name it whatever you want. Do they have to say how many people own it?
Yeah.
Let's kind of look at that. I mean, that's,
Look at it.
So you're really just looking at a way to minimize the impact. You know, if there were several
Yes.
owners and only one was using it at any given, I mean, there's a lot of factors. You know,
mostly it's the back lots coming through. Is the
Yeah, because
biggest.
that's
our
there, that's
biggest.
really what we're trying to solve, and that clause right there too is the back lot. The lot is not the issue, the back lot
It's
is
the
the
back
issue.
lots that they'd have 20 owners with 20 acres. You know, they'd all camp and everything and do whatever, and that would, so we kind of got that covered, I thought. But
Go to, you know, like who's got boats registered or that kind of stuff, you know, that you can only have so many parties in that with a registered boat on the property, you know?
we're making it too tough to.
Okay, but didn't, and there again, I'm probably wrong on this, but somewhere don't we have in there that you can only have, I thought, X amount of boats tied up to a dock without being considered a
right.
marina?
Yeah.
right.
6 on the property, so.
So that we have covered.
Yeah, that.
So, but I mean, so we can't have, I can't have 20 boats tied to my dock just because we're all owners of
Back lots.
the back lot and have easement. I can still only have, what was it, 6?
6 per.
So I can still only have 6 boats tied up to my dock.
still,
So that
Yeah.
controls
and
it.
that's an arbitrary number. We were just trying to figure out what the DNR would allow for a 100-foot lot, but I mean, the county could be more restrictive on that as well. So,
That's where you, every 100 feet you can have a dock. I think we'd leave it
So the
at
first 50
6,
feet, you
yeah.
get one dock, 2 boat slips, 2 personal watercraft. The next 100, or the next 50 feet, to bring you up to a 100-foot lot width, you get half that amount. So it's 1 dock, 1 boat slip, 1 PWC. So that's where the 6.
That's where the 6 came.
And if you own more than that, you're still limited.
It's still limited to 6, so.
But I mean, that takes some of the pressure off.
Well, that'd be quite a bit, just 6
The-
boats. It's
the
still, like you
lake.
said, like if there's 20 owners, they're all gonna have 1 boat, just about. There's 20
Yeah.
boats.
But I mean, we're controlling it a little bit through the amount of boats you have.
Without saying ownership, that you can't get a group together by some.
Right.
I think.
Yeah,
we
because
got
like
that
there,
part.
if we've got the 15, 20 owners on the back lot, if they can still only have 6 watercraft, we're only letting,
We're controlling the usage.
Which would-
Is the goal.
would be limiting in a sense of who would want to go into a property like that, say, but I can only use my boat
Half the time, yeah.
half the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Without saying you can't have, because an LLC or whatever, they put it under, they can.
And T was a new provision that we added. And that is to take and prevent what Brian was talking about, where all of a sudden you got 1 lake lot and you tack on more land on the backside. And now all of a sudden you can increase your density. So that was a good catch. So.
Yeah. Yep, that,
Because now all of a sudden you might have enough, they can split it 3 times or 4 times, so. Yep.
so but isn't that then solving some of our problem too? I mean,
yeah,
you wouldn't, going forward, once we pass this, you wouldn't be able to buy the land and add on. If you've got the land today, you could do it.
you couldn't buy it.
But you couldn't, in the future, you wouldn't be able to buy that 20 acres on the back lot
And add to it.
and add to it.
Well, you'd be able to add a little bit as long as you didn't hit that threshold and that to take, and let's say we're on a class 1 lake. So as long as you didn't hit the threshold that you now have 200 feet of frontage and you have 2 acres, and then if you still had a 3/4 or 1 acre lot, you could add a 1/4 acre, because that's not going to increase the residential dwelling units allowed.
Right, but as far
So it
as,
still allows some flexibility in that, but yes, it's going to prohibit tacking on a bigger chunk to a chunk on the lake right now.
would that not then, doesn't that fix the problem above that we were just talking about?
I think it helps fix it, yeah.
I mean, because I'm not gonna be able to buy that 20 acres on the backside of my lot and get 15 people in with access.
Yeah,
And give them 1/20 of the ownership of my lake lot to get there.
We can look at, that text, maybe tweaking it, so.
Yeah. okay.
Concept is there, so. All right. Now, we don't have a lot of changes for quite a ways, so again, we just removed the B1 commercial and industrial zoning districts from the shoreline area. 2-family throughout each zoning district and multifamily, we moved them to a permitted use, because that's the only way that staff is gonna know. And that it's being used as a duplex or a multifamily, and that gives us the ability to take and check it or density requirements and that kind of stuff. We have the annual inspection and that allowed on a septic, and same for the building inspector, so.
That was for bedrooms and the sewer, was it? Yeah,
Rooms and
okay, for
the
both.
sewer,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
correct, annually. Again, like I said, 3, and that is just moving 2 families to a permitted use. 4, that's a cleanup in that, when we went with Muni code and that, they put it in the wrong place. It should be its own item, so no change there.
Right.
Transient lodge went back to what it
Well,
was.
this one's fine.
Was 20 in 2019, and that's where we were, but prior to
Only need 1.
15, it was 14.
Doug, do you have a question?
No, sir, I just was trying to get another ice pack, sorry.
Oh, okay. He is hurt.
Oh, yeah.
2 and 4 goes down to number 4, permitted use. Same thing there. 2 and 3 go down to a permitted use, manufactured home is removed. And that goes to the A10 zoning district, where we're at right now. 2 family, and then a little bit farther. Manufactured home work. So I put it on an RA5 because that's more common in that around our lakes. Brought it down to an Ag 10, and then we go back up just a little bit. Sorry to jump around. Supervisor Olson had mentioned about deleting feed mills, commercial stables, and composting sites. So we've got that removed out of there now. And that I will point out, and that the commercial stables we did add to the small business commercial list. So anyway, it's not really losing it. Outdoor commercial events, we talked about that at the last meeting. 8.6 as conditional use. Ag 20 is the same. Natural resources, remove the temporary hunting cabins and campers. That's the same. There's a B1 that's all crossed out. All those 53 uses and that went over into the small business commercial classification as a conditional use. At our last meeting, Supervisor Wilson had brought up adding an archery range as an allowed use. And then resorts, marinas, recreational camps, campgrounds, manufactured home parks, those were all conditional uses. So basically, the reason why we picked out those again was housing density and trying to make them a conditional use. Right there, same ones. Small business commercial, basically the only allowed use in a small business commercial district would be a normal single family dwelling. If they wanted any kind of commercial use, then they would have to apply for a conditional use permit. And then we provide the list of all of them there. And just up a little bit, here's the stables right there, number 12. So, and
can I ask another question? This is Sharon again.
Yep, go ahead.
Under that, where you're talking about remove the general business, commercial, and industrial zoning districts, where it says this will limit commercial buildings within the shoreland areas to 20,000 square feet of building per parcel.
Correct. Yep.
Parcel can be an acre, right?
Right. Yep.
So 20,000 square feet on an acre is pretty much the acre, isn't it?
No, an acre is 43,560 square feet.
Yeah, it's pretty much the acre.
Yeah, they might not be able to meet setbacks, on that if they have a smaller lot like that for that size of building. That's just for the whole small business commercial district, was that 20,000 square foot. If we left a B1 district there, it's possible that they could do bigger if they met their setbacks. And one of the things they run into is sewer systems too, and having, room for that or a compatible system for their type of use, and then stormwater erosion control plans.
Okay.
For that
All that
amount.
way.
That's a maximum of 20,000.
Yeah, it's maximum. So that's basically why we just got rid of the B1, said, hey, we're gonna allow all these zoning classifications anyway, because before the B3 just said it's the same uses as B1. But we were like, well, we're okay with 20,000 square feet. Let's just take and get rid of B1, keep the B3, and then the B3 zoning district, Sharon, also has some screening provisions in it. So.
Okay. This sound system is terrible, I have to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But it also has that maximum lot coverage is 30%. So that 20,000 and that
So they'd be
if it's
limited
small.
on a 1 acre lot to 12,000 square feet,
12,000, yeah.
roughly.
So there's it's under D under that one.
Right, correct, that is there.
So I mean, it does cover that small stuff.
Yep. Industrial, a lot of those uses don't fit. in the shoreline area, so that's always being removed. Mining district and that, we kept that, we do have mines and that within the shoreline area. And that classification of water stayed the same, going down to floods. Yeah, so the DNR, the black text here, the DNR requires us to have that in our shoreline ordinance in NR 115. We did add in here though, and that it is a conditional use permit. So it's just specifying that type of permit that would be needed for a PUD. We haven't had one of these, so anyway, not a big deal, but it's kind of catches. So number 3 here is our same easement text and that we had up above. And we do not have the chapter 32 in there because this is in shoreline provisions now. And you can scroll down. And access limitations to navigable waters. At the last meeting, the committee brought up stormwater ponds as being allowed for an outlot within a subdivision. So there's that text right there for stormwater pond.
I didn't hear that.
So at the last meeting, Sharon, sorry, I had my face towards the screen. The last meeting, Kim brought up allowing an outlot in a subdivision for a stormwater pond. And so I did add the text so that there's no riparian outlots within the shoreline area. And an outlot is a lot that doesn't meet the minimum lot size. Except for an outlot within a subdivision for a road or for stormwater pond purposes only, as long as such outlot does not provide any riparian access, right, or rights, either directly or indirectly. That's what the new text reads.
Okay.
Again, private access, outlots, added number 5, and that the rights just can't be expanded underneath those old provisions. Kind of given, but at least we have it clarified. We took and changed back up a little bit. Right here, I believe there's a comment about any expansion of an existing commercial be approved by Polk County Zoning Office. The committee had, so that was changed. And nothing on that one. So jumping into manufactured homes. The mobile home stuff here. I had a little mark there in that because Brad had asked about it. Mobile homes are prior to 1976, so it's manufactured before June 15th of 76. They are not HUD certified. They are not allowed in the county as like new dwellings, and that be put on a property. It's manufactured home, and that would be what would be allowed. So that's just to try to prohibit somebody, and to make it very clear, it already says this when we define mobile home up above, and that in the ordinance, but here it is right there.
We have that definition of the 76 and all that, 19, that's in there.
Yep, it's all in there. And it talks about a mobile home being made prior to June 15th of 76. And then it says in that no mobile home shall be placed on a lot in Polk County after the effective date of this ordinance. It's in the actual defined term. But here's where we're talking about manufactured homes. I just thought it'd be clearer to take into it. And lately, there's been a kind of a big rush on, it seems like there's a lot of people trying to get rid of their old mobile homes. And they can't even give them away because no county around here will accept them. So,
Yeah.
okay, so manufactured home parks and that, so it's still at the 5 acres, went through and crossed out mobile and made it manufactured throughout. That's something that we got at the last meeting. Shall follow the conservation design development standards. So that's still going to give them a 25% increase in density over a normal plotted development. So if it's 10, they can now get actually up to 13, homes there. So that's kind of the goal there. So we didn't need the number per acre or the size of the site. I don't think any of our existing manufactured home parks really can expand much. And then if even, we may only have 2 of them in the county that fall under county zoning anyway. Made the setback to the water 75 feet to match the travel trailer park conditions. Increased the minimum setback to the lot lines that should be read to 50 feet. And then also separated distance of 40 feet in between the homes. Otherwise, everything else stay the same. Travel trailer parks, we consider them the same as campers. We've got a lot of calls actually on campers. And that provision F is everything the same as what we had talked about for the ag tourism camps and that. So didn't change anything there. You will see there's a handout that is our only public comment that we had received. She tried to be here today and that to provide comment at the beginning of the meeting, but she wasn't able to, so she wrote the letter instead. So campgrounds are something that we're seeing a lot of pressure on as far as development goes. And her particular case doesn't really fit any of the ordinance stuff, so I thought I'd take it as provided. So okay.
Jason, could I get a clarification on number 2? No, F2. The reason I'm asking is the property is not within 1,000 feet of a class 1 or 2 lake. And we all know that, like Memorial Day, 4th of July and Labor Day, families that live on the lake and have a proper lake lot or a large lake lot, all their family comes up. Would that be included here, or is that just because this is a temporary campground as permitted? Did I make that clear?
Oh, so technically, a lot of them are probably in violation, Doug, depending on how long they're there and how many campers are there anyway. But this is to try to provide a property up to 3 camping units, but they would not be allowed to be within 1,000 feet of a class 1 or 2 lake. So in other words, the shoreland areas of a class 1 or 2 would be out, but they could have it within 1,000 feet of a class 3, which would be our unnamed ponds and stuff and smaller lakes. But yeah, if they're within that shoreland area right now, it would not be something that we could permit as a temporary campground. And that, because it'd be a violation otherwise.
Yeah, I'm talking about right on the lake. It would just be friends and family coming for a holiday. I mean, we all know they do it all over the area.
Cousin Eddie shows up.
Right. Technically, and then they can, so how the ordinance is written right now is if you've got a cabin on the lake or a house on the lake, you can take and have 1 travel trailer there for 14 days out of a 60-day period, and that to be able to use it. So in other words, if they come up for Labor Day weekend and then stay 3 nights, come up Labor Day or 4th of July, that's maybe 2 months apart, and then they could stay, 11 nights that time. So, and they'd be on, and that would be in compliance. But if they have more than 1, anytime they're going to be in violation. So.
Okay,
And again, that's increasing the density, of the lake lot and the pressure that's on the lakes. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so G, this is in our campground text now. We took and kept it the same as travel trailer park or campground shall be designed to the conservation design development standards, same as manufactured home parks. This is a concept that Brian and I took and came up with or threw out there since the last meeting. That no matter what you have for area, that for each camper or each camping unit, you would have 2 acres of space. So in other words, a 20-acre, lot or parcel could have 10 campers on it. And that, or a 40-acre lot could have 20 acres on it. Compared to like a conservation design development, a 40 acre might be able to have upwards of 50, on it. So that's an idea. I don't know if you're supportive of that or whatnot, but the idea is to be able to keep, a bigger common area in that for the playground equipment or whatever and have more room. So.
Okay. I'm just thinking they have to go to Health and Human Services, so to even try to get that, they have to go through a lot for the health part,
Yeah.
bathrooms and all that.
Correct. They're on the bathrooms and stuff. They're not on the acreage or anything like
Yeah.
that. So, that's a zoning.
So our zoning requirement, they could probably meet, they might not be able to meet the health standards on some of it. To have water, to have toilets, to have all that.
Or they'll have to do more of those because like a toilet's got to be within 400 feet. Under
Yeah.
Public health, a backup toilet. And then I think you got to provide one for each gender, each sex. And that's so 400 feet. But I mean, this is saying, that you can still cluster the travel trailers in an area. That's the whole point behind the conservation design, is to take and put all your housing next to each other and then keep the other area remote and preserved for
If we're
conservation.
putting them close together, they're gonna be within 400 feet or
It'd have
for the
to,
most part,
to meet that health standard.
to
they
meet
have
the
to-
health standard. I mean,
But they still have to have the 40 or 50 by 100 or something spot, so it still gets bigger than you think.
Correct.
Or what is it, 40 by 100?
50 by 100.
50 by 100, all right, yeah. But where does it kick in with the health? That after three,
After three.
the health.
And now we're
kicks in
talking
big.
full campground here,
Yeah.
and that's, we're talking over three, units, because they're not doing a temporary campground, they're a full-time year round.
Full-time year
And
round.
that.
so they're gonna, because it's a full-time campground, they're gonna have to be at the health department anyway. Getting
Getting all that.
all of that. So they're gonna automatically be there. It isn't like we need to say that because they're gonna have to go there to get their
The
permit.
provisions here, we did include the health department guidelines, so it's kind of like one-stop shopping and that, they
See
can
it.
look at it all
Yep.
right here,
Yeah.
so, yep.
So they can't say they didn't know. They have to
Yeah.
go there. kind
Yeah.
of get
I don't know, I mean, and maybe this is just my own observance, but you think about the campgrounds in Polk County, I don't think we have a lot of transit and that, overnight stays. Like DN campground out there, I know they've got a couple transients, a handful of them, but most of them are permanent. If you go down by Shoreview down there on Pike Lake, those ones are all pretty much permanent. And that even the one up here on County Road and the newest campground, they're seasonal people, so. I mean, I'm not
Same
sure that
people.
they would complain about having a little bit more space, is what I'm saying,
Mhm.
so. Okay, so we already talked about the size. Still have a maximum number in that, but if we do the 2 acre deal, and that's kind of like an upper cap. And then they would need 200 acres of land in order to hit that cap. Group tent sites, and that's still with the 14 days. Number 7 here is something that I think the county should have had a long time ago, just administratively, about not being able to connect your accessory, house and that to the travel trailers. So that's the important provision. And Burnett and Barron County both have these provisions with 100 square foot storage shed alongside your camper. And then you can have an awning or deck, patio, screen porch of 200 square feet. So first of all, what we're saying by not being connected is that you can't connect a 200 square foot screen porch onto your side of your travel trailer, so that travel trailer is no longer able to be out. So, but it could go right up adjacent to it, and it would just have its own footings, and that's supporting it back at the camper. Setbacks here, and they have to be camping units, 40 feet. I don't think we're gonna have much issue there with the larger lot size. And about 15 feet between the camping units, that was in there before. These conditions here are all from our tourist rooming house, so 8 through 14. paperwork from the tourist rooming house, put on there, and then owner or operator, kind of like a camp host would be on site in case there's questions or any 911 emergencies. 16 is in our tourist rooming house too, about the licensing number. Something that you guys brought up at the last meeting was providing the fire extinguisher and first aid kit and emergency supplies for every 20 camping units in the campground. That's a little bit more restrictive than the health code, but doable. 18 and 19 kind of go hand in hand. 18 is providing a site map, and 19 is actually having everything fairly marked. So, our 20, I know that you guys have brought up about having some kind of way for like people to log into a campground for 911 purposes, and that's so that they know who were there, how many were there, in case like the windstorm of 19 came through. I did reach out to Joe with 911 over there, and again too, and we don't know anyway. But the only thing that we can do is encourage them to sign on to Code Red, and that the county already has, and that for the people that are using the campground, just so that they would be getting those emergency alerts. That's about the best thing we've got right now. You guys changed the parking spaces from 1.5 because you don't know what a half a car is to 2. So I then clarify the size. Setbacks 75 feet to the ordinary high water mark, kept that the same as manufactured home. Meeting subdivision regulations. 1 single family dwelling is allowed on the premise for the owner or operator, and that they can turn that into a short-term rental. And that is one provision that we're saying that this is a campground. We're not saying it's a recreational camp. There's other provisions that they can apply for a recreational camp as a conditional use, where that would allow them to rent multiple little cabins. And that this is just so that that dwelling that they bought on the property doesn't become their BRPO. Limited by the DNR, and that for the number of docks and watercraft, still being classified as a marina. 26, this is all the health code requirements.
Should 25 also have our requirements? That's 6 per dock and 2.
Well,
Is
we
that what
do
DNR
have
says?
this, that all being classified as a marina. And
Okay.
so that would limit them to 6.
Okay, so that we kind of reference that, or we can catch it there.
That's it. So we had removed those 3 conditions for the variance and CUP process.
Can we, or Bob, can you back up to 42-246C? I just got it on my piece of paper.
42 what?
42-246C. Okay, I should have had better notes apparently with me. I wanted to know what it was. Okay.
You think we change some of those or what? Or you want to take some out? Yeah. 50.
I guess one question would be is, so a conditional use permit, I come in and apply for one, it's what, $750?
And then there's a $400 actual permit after the hearing. That's how we
Yeah.
enforce
So-
whatever conditions you've done.
So we've taken these from realistically allowable uses and said now they're a conditional use, which I think is okay. I just think it's kind of steep for us to go from being allowable uses to a conditional use and then hitting them up for $750 when today I can do it for nothing. I mean, other than, because the $400 is the $400, but we're going to say, because we changed things, we're going to hit you up for $750 because you want one of these today over 6 months ago or a year ago or what. I don't know. It just seems like
That's the cost of the public hearing, but what the cost of the actual cost of doing it. And this is so that people can come out and actually, they want that public hearing to know what's happening. Because that's what we get a lot. We get,
Yeah, I know,
everybody
but I
shows
mean,
up and
but
says.
today
"We're
I
gonna
can
hear
do
about
any
it."
of those things for free.
Yes,
If you're zoned general business commercial.
if you're zoned.
Right, if
Yeah.
I'm in the right, if I'm in the
In the
right
short,
zoning
yeah.
district. And realistically, we're leaving you in the same zoning district, but saying now it's gonna cost you $750 to do it.
And all your neighbors are gonna know now.
And that's fine.
That's
I
kind of
just,
what it
I
is.
just think I think we're, I don't know, I'll just say, I think we're gouging the consumer to say, well, one day you can go start that's too far away for me to see.
You could start a car wash.
You can start a car wash today, but we passed this ordinance for nothing today. And April 1st, it's gonna cost you $750 to start the car wash
And have a public hearing.
and have a public hearing and
So your neighbors know what's going on.
and I'm fine with the neighbors knowing what's going
Yeah.
on. I just think that we went from being no cost to $750. And I get it. If you're opening a business, $750 really shouldn't be, that big of a deal, but
But that's,
What, 10 2x4s nowadays?
yeah. But it's the 750 is actually the cost of the staff, the reports, and us to do. it.
Actually,
And it's-
the
and it's
last time
actually-
I did the analysis, it was like $850. for
Yeah,
the
we're
report.
short.
So, yep.
We need one person to show up at every one of our public hearings, one of the supervisors, that $100 to make it work. Go ahead.
And there's some added value because we're treating each applicant case by case. So
Yeah,
there's some value there in terms of your oversight and additional conditions.
well, it's getting more public input on what's happening.
And so any contentious development or undesirable development, you could address that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just think there it is. We're going from free today for the same business to tomorrow for $750. And
Their grandfather.
well,
The
yeah, they're
existing-
grandfathered,
but
but I
any
mean,
new-
if I want to start the same business one day over the next day, if I come in and get the permit one day, it's going to be $400 and just go do it. And if I come in the next day, it's going to be $400, $750 and a morning spent here. And that's all because the calendar flipped.
Yeah. It's like the end of the year for your license on your car. Boom. It's one of those things you gotta pay.
So hurry, right, Tracy?
Hurry up. That's up to you guys. You guys are the ones that set the fee schedule, and if you want to offset it with levy dollars, that's your choice. And that the whole point of putting it as a conditional use, because we're thinking Shoreland area now, that an art gallery coming next to me or within the Shoreland area is probably gonna have a lot different negative impacts, if you will, if there's any. And that then
Custom
maybe
stables.
feed mill,
Laundry.
and
Yeah,
that might
no,
have, so.
and I'm not arguing against it. I'm arguing against the fact that we're gonna charge them $750 when today it's free.
Yeah.
And that's the concept behind it, though, is just to try to take and be able to review the changes, because now the car dealership might have all these bright lights on all night long, and it
Oh, yeah.
shines across my lake and.
And I'm not arguing that point or,
But that money deal, that happens when everything changes. It's every fee schedule we come up, they gotta justify it. And we keep giving them raises. That's why it goes up.
you keep giving him a raise apparently, because I'm here arguing to lower it.
Well,
Not
it's
the
coming
raise,
in
man.
June. You'll see the new fee schedule in June.
Oh, it's just for year.
I think I brought
It
it.
costs more for permits already. So I go buy $100 back every permit, $50.
Oh, no, it'd be for fee schedule for 2024.
Oh, 23, yeah.
You thought you were gonna have to run in quick and buy 10 of them.
Yeah, I did that already at the end of
So
the
you
year.
have
I did that.
Now,
at the end of
now
the year.
Kim is looking to get that deal before the price goes up.
I already did that.
And
It's over.
insider trading.
First
Yeah,
of the year.
exactly.
First of the year is over.
All right.
So that's not so bad.
Yeah, okay, that was my gripe on it.
So is the committee okay with Brian and I looking at that ownership deal and see if we can come up with an answer on that? If we can, fine. If we can't, fine. And then scheduling the public hearing for March 2nd and then
Yeah,
Yep.
I think so.
we have that at 9:30 or
We can, because then we can get through the, whatever else we have, some of the updates and stuff. We can
Yeah.
get through those guys. Don't have to.
Well,
sit
and
through it
don't
all.
wait, when is, when is
Chad coming.
Chad coming?
16th, so the next meeting.
The next one
Okay,
after.
so
he's
so-
after.
okay.
Yeah,
Timber sales, so that'll be the 16th, the second meeting this month.
that'll be
so-
that one too. Okay.
But let's set it at 9:30 because then we can get whatever is in front of it.
Yeah,
We
any
can get
updates,
Mo and Tim and
all our updates.
all of that wound out through in the first half hour.
That helps.
and we'll try to have something on that other provision and that for you to look at on the 16th and that, so that you'd still be able to make an amendment on the public hearing day, for
Yep.
that. So it's not like
For
we're
that.
just going over it.
Then we'll see what we'll see what the public says too. We can go down through it. Kind of like you did now.
Right.
For the public hearing and see how many people we have and how much,
So,
Yeah. See what we get for.
see what
Public
how many
hearing
comments we
comments.
really get. I mean, we finally got one in right. So somebody's watching.
Yeah.
Our first comment, well, they were actually in yesterday talking about it, and
So that helps.
And then the issues like with that one is, for one, the business plan is kind of a little bit moving yet. So it's hard to take and really funnel them down to, yes, you're a campground, you're a manufactured home park, you need to go with a normal development, like a conservation design development. So there's like one little hurdle to stop them from going in each one of them, and a lot of it's with the building code. It's not even something at the county level, it's
Yeah.
building code.
You start seeing some of, this is,
1 square feet.
yeah. It's something we don't get to control all of it, so.
And the 400 square feet that the health department does,
Yeah.
so, because the health department says you can't have a camper over 400 square feet in size in your campground. So if you're looking at something 400 or a little bit bigger, then you got to go into owned lot type of deal, an actual flat. If you're less than 400, you can comply with the travel trailer stuff, but then you have to meet all the campground requirements. So it's kind of that, but yet they don't want to go the owned lot route because they want to be able to pull them out of there. So then they're not a permanent dwelling. Oh, there's lots of little complications. But
Little,
then
yeah,
it was
just-
kind of like thought of as like a yurt, which yurt's not going to meet building code.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because a lot of these, it's like I said, the little sheds they're pulling around, putting up, say they're living in them. No bathrooms, no electric, no nothing, but they got generators running, all that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, so.
I'm sure we'll get some comments, but in other words, in that there's campgrounds being proposed, and people are thinking out there and that about this, so the timing is very low. So,
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Brian has helped a lot in that, so anyway, we got a lot of good stuff, and that I look at this stuff hours on end, and that, and it's tough to pick out all the little stuff, so that's why you see stuff beyond the intensification, is because you're just trying to take and have another set of opinion or another set of eyes over the text that has been molded for the last 50 years, so, yep, so thank
It's
you.
working well, I think.
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
It's working well because I can still argue with the lawyer, our South lawyer.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the work group, Corporation Council, UCAM, and in particular, Jason and Brian for all their work on this significant rewrite of the shoreline and subdivision ordinance. So just to confirm, March 2nd, we'll have the public hearing at 9:30 for the campgrounds. Those new easement restrictions and the reduced density requirements in those, in our code of ordinance. So that will be set. For the next meeting, Kim, like I mentioned, Mark Osman will be here for the timber sales. Supervisor Olson, you were right. Chad Alberg will be here on the wildlife damage claims. We also, it's that time of year, it's every other year, when the Land and Water Conservation Board has their ballot.
Okay.
Okay.
The Land and Water Conservation Board has their ballot. We'll put that in the packet. There's also biographies of all the candidates. So we'll put that in your packet for February 16th as well. Just some Environmental Services Division news. Mo mentioned it. When he was showing that spur or that trout into Burnett County there, both Mark Gossman and I think I'm going to go up to and meet with the Burnett County Natural Resources Committee. I think they're similar to this committee. We're going to ask about permission to use that fire lane as indicated on the map that Mo delivered, as well as increasing the seasonality. Our season, as you recall, is Memorial Day to November 30th. Theirs is September 15th to November 30th. So those are the open dates for ATV, UTV use on county forest. So we'll have that conversation, whether or not there's some flexibility there. If not, we'll just, add some signage and I'll just go down that town road and in the off season.
Yeah.
So those are two requests we have for their Natural Resources Committee, and I'll come with Mark, and who knows, we might be working with them in the future when it comes to the Gandy. Some other news, the Friends of the Gandy. Vince drafted a MOU, a memorandum of understanding with them. They had their annual meeting on Sunday, so this past weekend. So we drafted an MOU, which is the draft for them to consider. The advantage of them becoming a partner with us would be their ability to apply for stewardship funds and have some programming and events out there. They do have an MOU with the DNR, but this tri-party agreement will support their stewardship fund applications. So that will keep you apprised upon. Welcome you to look at the final trail network plan. If you look at the back where it has the pre-construction design and amenities, costing is in there as well, and they reflect accurately the 2022 budget. And we're going to adhere to that, and we're going to try to implement as many projects as possible. Supervisor Olson, you asked about the feasibility study. That is in the queue. I want to thank you for that suggestion about whether it's the consultant or us reaching out to all the municipalities in which the trail intersects to get their input on the route through their village or town. I think that's a great catch. I appreciate that thought. And that's the thing. We have that draft RFP written. We haven't delivered it yet, but I'm going to add that as a deliverable for the RFP. Thank you for that. With that said, yeah, we'll have Tim back again, as well as Mo. Unfortunately, we'd like to relieve the burden of Mo coming to every other meeting, but we have a lot of projects to implement, so there's good value. It helps in communication. We do meet with them and talk to Public Works Division quite a bit. So we're working really well together collaboratively.
I think if we just if Mo is on our agenda all the time and he just doesn't show up if there's nothing. I mean, I think that's, that's fair. If I've got nothing, he can just be on the agenda all the time. And if it's like, okay, Mo didn't have anything, he's not here today, so we skip it. But that way he's there if he does have
It's almost like that land and water, so everything should kind of be
Yeah.
on there and just
Yeah.
check with. But he could also send Ben too, if he had,
Or Tim, yeah.
Right, you said
Yeah.
Ben or relay it to one of
or
us.
relay it to
Yeah.
Tim too,
Most cases,
so.
yeah. We
Yeah, I
just
mean,
trying to
even-
limit. his
Even,
response
even
to
today,
everything.
even
Yeah.
today, anybody, no offense, Mo, anybody could have given the presentation. If
Yeah.
Mo needed to be elsewhere, it could have been worked out through your division.
Well said, yeah, and this project's really built a good relationship between two divisions. Not like we were separate silos anyway, but we're really working together on things and it's been a real positive.
Something for the next meeting. I think we should consider, over the years, we change our zoning. So to speak, something comes up, I think we should look at just setting a couple months a year and saying, we're gonna change zoning, or look at changing zoning January and July. I don't care what the months are. And things can build to that instead of, somebody coming in and saying, oh, I got an idea to change zoning. Okay, let's just look at it a couple of times a year. That takes it off of Jason. We know when it's coming, and there's gonna be times when the state makes changes and Jason's gonna walk in and say, well, we gotta change zoning because the state just made this rule.
Right, so
Or
like.
staff walks in and says, hey, we missed this. Maybe 2 months from now, Jason walks in and says, hey, guys, we just done this, but here's what we missed and we need to go fix it. So we do that, but the normal everyday things that come up, we just don't jump in and change them monthly, because it just seems like over the years, it has kind of gotten to be that
It's
way.
gotten worse the last couple years.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
really just,
Beat this to death and we're here again.
Yeah,
well, it
and
just got rewritten too. So I mean, we got the first new
Yeah.
draft to start
But
with.
I mean,
So now we
it
gotta
sets
work with
us
it.
up so that staff knows, okay, outside of an emergency or state law changes, and we're not gonna change state law, so it's just a matter of.
I
coming
got a
in and-
couple coming up for land use and regulation.
Right, but I mean, then we just know when it's gonna happen.
You're saying personal agenda isn't a driven
Yeah, well, you just wait them out. You know that
Like
we're gonna
this one,
discuss, we're gonna start discussing changes.
Yep.
because this one already changed everything we just discussed, the one they
Yep.
just gave us.
Yeah,
I mean, so
So-
it's
so
like a
those things
restart of
that-
what we've just been doing.
those
Right.
things that come in, unless they're deemed by staff as emergencies, they just kind of sit on the table and they build so that whatever them, I mean, I don't care what 2 months it is.
Right.
But they build and then we say, well, okay, here's the 6 months. We've got these 7 things that have
To
come
go
in
through, yeah.
to look at. And
We really would appreciate
So it'd be
that.
better
So like
than-
in our work plan, could we have 1 month, like the slow month, perhaps like a
January,
January?
February, March would be the 3 months to get a bunch done then.
Right,
Of
and so if
this,
someone were to come in June, like these folks with the tiny homes, we'd say, oh, we would postpone until our rewrite season,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is January.
yeah, I just
Is that-
don't know if, and the only reason I say 2 is because you get, well, okay, let's say it's January and somebody comes in with February and we're gonna say, you gotta wait till next January.
Yeah,
Should we put this on the agenda next time?
Yeah, so,
Rather than
yeah,
discuss it
yeah,
now.
that's what I'm
I
asking
think,
for, to
yeah.
put it on the agenda.
as
and
for
discuss it at the next
discussion,
meeting.
and let's see
is-
what works,
Yeah,
for the department. Because you like to, if it's building stuff, you'd like it before the building season
Right.
and things like that too, but you don't want to do it middle of the summer when he's swamped, doing inspections and
right.
everything and that.
yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And
that
then
would-
any housekeeping stuff that staff recognizes we could bring at any time. I assume.
Yeah,
We can talk about it. Okay.
yeah, I think we should put that in kind of a list that you want. What constitutes an emergency? I mean, if it's just something, like this, do we shut down everything and do it the whole thing again for tiny houses and stuff or? Yeah,
We'll think about that and maybe about a couple options for you on the 16th.
okay.
Appreciate that.
So what else is in our work plan? Besides those coming up,
So we did a couple of things in February that in January, like for example, the compliance presentation.
Yeah.
We got a little ahead of ourselves, which is good.
Now, does Land and Water have any?
They're coming up.
No other public hearings for the first meeting in March? I mean, just so that,
Nope, just that one.
okay, yeah, just so we didn't have,
Oh, yeah, multiples. If we had.
yeah, anyway, when the one could be lengthy.
That one could,
We
yeah.
got two.
There's also a second meeting in March, and that would be Rock Quarry.
If that comes up, okay.
So
If it does come up, okay.
tentative right now, depending on DNR opinion. So
Yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, that's just so, I would just so we didn't have two of them
No, it'll
on
be just,
that
it'll
day.
just be this and
Yeah, when it's one more major like this, it is like a rezoning, it doesn't matter,
Right,
but that's something.
yeah, this might
like
not be a
this.
15-minute.
Yeah, well, it's gonna take 45 minutes just to go through it. Show what we did change, like he has to, and then go from there, so.
yeah, back to the 16th of February. Again, timber sales from our county forester, APHIS, Chad Alberg with wildlife damage claims, Land and Water Conservation Board ballot, update from Tim and or Mo. And discussion.
Well, the RFPs will be back, won't they? For updates, didn't he say the
Yeah,
ninth?
the 9th, you're gonna
Some
hold
of
those, so
those, some
they'd
of
be-
those,
they would be back.
So
so those will be open, the RFPs will be,
Yep, for the trails.
and you might have an update with St. Croix Falls too, so like, we could.
We
get
may,
these.
yeah, that's why I think Tim and or Mo, we can provide those updates. And then lastly, a discussion on setting an ordinance rewrite season or month
Yeah,
to set aside for this type of work. That would help with our workflow. Absolutely.
well, we could get our work plan, that it's more, the whole meeting would just be almost on that.
Or both
Well, and
meetings
that's-
on that.
and there again, something as major as what we're doing here now, that could come at any time staff said it needed to come, because
Yeah.
it's major, it's big. But just the everyday run of the mill, hey, what do you think about changing zoning for this?
Yeah,
Thank you.
so that'll help with that big book too, that, okay, boom, we want to do it, I've
Oh,
got
for
one of
mini
those
code?
for the min code deal and
Yeah.
that, I mean, to just stop and go, whoa.
One
Because
page.
now in the 2-year cycle, the rules border in there, they get changed. I mean, it's gonna cost us clerk some money to change all them pages, keep track.
$15 a page.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
That's a
they're gonna
great
change
idea. I mean,
bunch.
that creates some efficiencies for their end too, for Unicode to codify all that in one.
'Cause every 2 years, we're gonna have the rules of order will change somewhat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not drastically, but they'll change. So,
Something
so
will
that whole
change.
section. But I mean, if we take it every other month, start sending stuff to them, that code, we'll never keep it straight. After we get codified, we'll be farther behind because we're gonna have too many additions and so much stuff.
I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Now, the clerk's office over there looks like she's in agreement, but still.
Oh, yes. We'll
Maybe
give her
I'll
some-
fight this argument in 2
It is,
weeks.
because, now that I'm in this meeting, it does help to know what's coming to be codified. Before it would just be like, here you go, here's what it is. But so putting it in one spot, I think that would be helpful for our office.
Because the clerk is the one that.
And there's 3 of them now, so they can handle it.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Just really new, just FYI, we have a vacancy in the zoning office, so. There's a
Is that
lot,
out?
there's a lot of stressors now in that.
Is it out though?
It
Advertised?
will be, no, we're working with HR, I'm trying to get that out posted shortly, so it'll be a zoning specialist 1.
Only specialist one, okay.
This
There
is
you
not
go, Brad.
necessary, this isn't
There you go.
yeah. Yeah, like they would want Clam Falls in the zoning.
No, they wouldn't. You're right.
It's all legal. So a request to whoever, because sitting at home 2 weeks ago, and I heard Sharon say she couldn't hear today. Is it possible to get a microphone between like the podium and the TV screen? Because when whoever, about 2 weeks ago, when Jason would turn around and speak,
They lost everything.
I lost everything. As long as he's projecting this way, it's really good, but as soon as he would turn around and go to
Need more ice?
to speak,
You
I
hear
would
about-
really
I hear
lose him.
about
And if we
every-
could get just a microphone
Ice.
on,
Yeah, I hear about everything. I'm just on the phone because we couldn't get the Zoom thing working right this
Yeah.
morning,
So
but
she's different, but what you're pointing out is something we look into. Now, keep in mind, we are redoing this.
no, and I know, and that's what makes me think it isn't, it isn't worth it. But I mean, when it's redone or whatever, we really need a microphone up there because I lost him when he turned and faced away from the
To
microphone.
point out or do anything, because when I
Yeah,
was at
'cause-
home too, you couldn't, you'd lose it all. No, you
Yeah.
can't even see his mouth.
And maybe if I could hear, just in general, it would help too,
Well, I
but
think this is a man system, because when you don't want them to hear, it picks up
who's
everything.
ever done it?
When you do want them, when you do want, you can. Yeah, I think it's a man system. Just saying.
I make a motion, we adjourn. We're getting there, I think,
Oh
again.
my gosh, she's on the phone and didn't get to do it. Hear it.
I get to do that usually, yes.
Yes, at least give us a second then.
I will, I second it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, brother.
But yeah, I did. It was like when Jason would turn around. It
The
was like,
tapes are horrible.
well, I might as well just give
They're
it up
absolutely
because
horrible.
I couldn't. I mean, when he was facing this way, clear as a bell,
Yep.
Right.
never missed a thing. But once he turned